Johnny Depp's been a big part of many people's lives through film, but some of his films have gone by unnoticed. While everyone has seen Pirates or Edward Scissorhands, not everyone has seen 2011's The RUM Diary. This is also the movie that he and Amber Heard met during. Just throwing that out there for anyone keeping up with recent events. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. And for those of you that need to hear this, this is just a movie. All stunts are for the sake of story and shouldn't be attempted on your own. Viewer discretion is advised. We start off by watching a private plane fly over the water, and eventually it comes to fly over a hotel where Kemp is rudely woken up by the airplane. He stumbles over to the door of his balcony, and he rips open the curtain to see a sign that shows us that we're in Puerto Rico. While Kemp goes to get some medicine from the bathroom, room service shows up and watches him pop pills. The room service man looks around the room, and he notices that the room is in complete disarray. After getting ready, Kemp takes a taxi through the town, and he seems to have brought multiple mini bottles of alcohol with him. Eventually, they come to the middle of San Juan, and a protest is going on in the streets. He makes his way through the crowd until he comes to the newspaper's office. Here, he goes to meet the editor-in-chief, Lauderman, but Sala explains some things to him while he waits. If the riots are part of the job in the 60s, I'd definitely be asking for a bigger pay raise. Hazard pay was a thing back then, right? Finally, Lauderman lets him in, and they go over his resume. He calls out Kemp for having a fake resume, but he's very blunt about what he's really looking for. All he needs is someone that isn't going to get caught up in the booze and women of Puerto Rico. Kemp definitely has a drinking problem, but Lauderman really doesn't care at this point. He takes him out to the floor where he tells Sala to show him around, and he tells Kemp that he'll be in charge of writing the daily horoscopes from now on, since the last guy got raped to death. Yeah, you heard that right. Even Kemp can't believe what he heard, and he literally asks them 3 times before finally saying anything else. After getting over the shock of things, Kemp heads to the filing department where he goes over previous editions, and he ends up meeting Sanderson, who tells him they'll talk later because he likes the cuttings he sent in. That night, Sala takes Kemp to a local bar, and he meets Paul. Kemp finds out that he was the only person to apply for the position, and Sala thinks that the publication is getting ready to close. Just then, Sala points out a drunken man named Moberg, and he tells him that Moberg is what's wrong with the paper. Moberg got caught up in the drink. When Sala drops Kemp off at his hotel, he finds out that a private function's going on, so he takes a paddle boat out into the water to drink. He's surprised to find that Chanot is swimming in the water. This is it. This is the beginning of the end. Just think, if they hadn't met in this movie, they would not be in the world of drama that they're in today. Now that I'm watching the movie, I actually can't believe these two ended up together. This is not a flattering look for either of them. Chanot tells him that her boyfriend is making a speech at the party, and she has to head back before they notice she's gone. Then Kemp says something that I'd imagine works in the present. Why did she have to happen? Just when I was doing so good without her. The next day, Kemp starts his job as a journalist, and he writes about the Yankees that constantly go to the bowling alleys and indulge in the frivolities. Well, Lauderman isn't too happy about his cynical writing, and he tells Kemp to rewrite about what he likes about the island. He also tells him that since he's drinking over 100 mini bottles of booze, he's no longer getting paid to stay at the hotel. Just then, Moberg stumbles in to get his paycheck, and Lauderman fires him. Moberg rips the ungodly toupee off Lauderman, and Kemp escorts him to his office where he's offered Moberg's position. Lauderman immediately gives Kemp the assignment of getting an interview with the mayor of Miami who's flying in, and he heads to the airport. After waiting there, Sanderson shows up to invite Kemp to lunch, and once Kemp sees that the mayor's flight has been cancelled, he agrees to go with him. Sanderson just feels like a bad guy. It might be the fact that I just see Aaron Eckhart as Two-Face, or it could be that he's bedazzled his pet tortoise. Anyone that bedazzles that much is a villain at heart. And look, Chanot is his girlfriend. Sanderson takes a moment to pitch an idea to Kemp. After taking a cab back to town, he heads to Sala's apartment to move in, and he gets the grand tour of the spacious apartment. After he finds a cockerel in the bedroom, Sala explains that he takes part in the local cockfights, and he takes Kemp to his rooster's next bout. After watching the fight, Kemp takes a second to look around the real Puerto Rico. He finds children scavenging and living in the rubble of the town, and he grabs some pictures. After heading back to Sala, they jump in the car and head back home. Moberg finds out that Kemp is going to write about the kids and the devastation he saw, and he tells Kemp not to waste his time on that. Well, he's not the only one that feels that way. When he takes the article to Lauderman, he's told the same thing. Lauderman also offers him alcohol even though he's telling him to quit. At least it's not that 470 proof rum. Although I kind of wish I could taste test that. That sounds like he's just drinking lighter fluid like homemade moonshine. Kemp gets a lesson on how the higher-ups see Puerto Rico, and he begins to understand that all they care about is the winners and paying to be part of the American dream. After a disappointing night, Kemp heads to Sanderson's house where he uses the telescope to spy on Chanot and Sanderson getting it on while hanging onto their boat. Suddenly, two older strangers show up and assume that he's watching the boat. When Sanderson and Chanot get to the shore, they introduce Kemp to Art, and Sanderson has Kemp help with a little pest control problem. He spots some of the locals creeping in the woods, and he kicks them away from his private beach. Later that evening, Kemp stays for a little dinner, and he listens to Art talk about how the Soviet Union was the worst thing on Earth. This movie seems like it was made to lead us to now. What's going on? Kemp gets pulled outside to join Sanderson and some other associates who want him to write about some false assumptions to try and help them get the okay to build a hotel on an island that they can't disclose. Kemp knows that this is illegal, but they leave the offer on the table for him to meet Sanderson the next day. Suddenly, Chanot shows up to tell Kemp that Sala is waiting for him outside, and she gives him a little flirtatious goodbye. When Kemp gets to Sala's car, he tells Sala that he's in love with Chanot, but he has no interest in Sanderson's ventures. Well, their visit doesn't go so well, and Kemp notices the same men from the woods that Sanderson told off. Kemp has the right idea here. He gets them to the car and they leave. Are they quick enough? Of course not. Should they be driving after drinking 470 proof rum? Absolutely not. So what does Kemp do? Uses the rum for what it really is, lighter fluid. Who does he blow fire at? A police officer. Fantastic. When they arrive at the police station, they're taken to night court, and they're told that they're about to face at least a year in prison. Just then, Sanderson arrives, and he convinces the judge to release them after mentioning the people he works with. Kemp goes to thank Sanderson, and he knows he has to go to the meeting now. The next day, Sala and Kemp retrieve the car with a front seat missing, and after an interesting ride to the meeting, Kemp finds out about an island that they plan to turn into a huge tourist spot. Kemp signs a disclosure agreement, and he's now part of the venture. Sanderson gives him one of his cars, he agrees to get him a place with a view, and he asks him to pick up Chanot for him. Not only does the bad guy give him one of his sports cars, he just puts Chanot in his lap practically. Once he picks up Chanot, she manipulates him into a little wager of chicken, and they speed down the road until they come to the water. They get out of the car to look at the water, and she almost kisses him. He stops her before anything happens, and he drops her off. When Kemp and Sala head to the paper, they find out that the police are looking for Sala, and Kemp convinces him to come with him to the island the next day. Sala and Kemp go with Art to look at the investment property, and they get their first look at the plans for the hotel and marina. After their business is conducted, Sala and Kemp hitch a ride to St. Thomas for the carnival that Chanot's supposed to be at. After some drinks, Kemp spots her dancing in the plaza, and he goes to surprise her. She takes Sala and Kemp to Sanderson's boat, and Kemp gets an earful for bringing Sala to the island. I was about to ask what the disclosure agreement was supposed to do. Sala's probably the second biggest liability in this entire movie next to Moberg. I'm surprised they even let him onto the island. This is where people start showing up washed up on shore, but here's Sala passing out drunk on Sanderson's boat after drinking his booze. If Sanderson leaves him alone long enough, Sala will drink himself into a grave. Later that night, the entire group heads to a local club, and Sanderson is ready to leave. Chanot is drunk though, and she pulls away from him to dance with a man who's taking his shirt off in the middle of the dance floor. As an answer, she starts taking off her dress, and Sanderson freaks out. He gets into a fight with a bunch of the local guys, and they throw him out. Kemp and Sala follow him out, and when Kemp tries to go back in to get Chanot, a man at the door tells him that they're closed and she's having a good time. The next morning, Kemp goes back to try and find Chanot, but he finds nothing. Sala mentions that she might have made it back to the boat, but Kemp doesn't think that Sanderson would let her back on. They head that way, and Sanderson tells him to mind his own business. He promptly asks for the car keys back, and he tells him that he blew it as he drives off. When Sala and Kemp get home, Moberg sells them more motorcycles, and he even agrees to throw in some powerful drugs if they check out his genitalia. Once again, you heard that right. He thinks something's wrong with it, so of course he's going to ask his best friends to look at it. This movie has such random weird moments. Kemp checks it out and confirms that something is horribly wrong with it. After Moberg leaves, Sala and Kemp sit to do the drugs, but they don't really feel anything. Then they start tripping like they've never done before. As an answer, they decide to drink more rum and go for a walk by the water. The next morning, everything goes back to normal, but a knock comes at the door. When Kemp answers the door, he finds Chanot. Kemp shows her in, and he goes to the newspaper to tell Lauderman about Sanderson's scandal. Lauderman wants nothing to do with him though. Afterwards, Kemp goes to Sanderson's to collect some of Chanot's things, and he goes home to check on her. After some time, Chanot seems to make herself at home, but Sala shows Kemp a writ that came in the mail. Wait, Kemp's getting in trouble because of his involvement with Chanot? Sanderson literally pulled the bond on the two of them because of this affair. She's not worth it. Can you imagine what a Puerto Rican prison was like in the 60s? Did he forget about the guy that got raped to death before he got there? Chenault decides that this is a good time to get frisky with Kemp, but Moberg interrupts him to tell him that the paper's been shut down. All of the employees go to meet up at a bar, and they discuss their options. Kemp decides that he's going to print one last edition of the paper to get back at Lauderman and everyone that's been using them. When they get back to the apartment, Kemp finds that Chenault is gone and left him $100. After realizing that they'll need a lot of money, Kemp comes up with the idea of betting on the high-end cockfights. So they take the rooster to Moberg's witch doctor to empower the fowl. I'm not sure what she did, but I'm not entirely sure what she did was magic. Actually, I take that back. She just spit up a frog. That has to be magic, right? Later, Kemp and Sala take the rooster to the big fights, and they win the first round. When Kemp goes to call Moberg, he finds out that he isn't there. He tries it again later, and Moberg apologizes for not answering. Moberg tells Kemp that everyone is at the building and everything is ready to go. When the rooster wins the final fight, Kemp and Sala head to the paper, and they find that everything is gone. Moberg lets them in to look around, and we find out that they won almost $6 grand. Moberg tells him that's enough for them to pay off their bond or disappear. But Kemp decides that he's not running. Instead, he's going to take one of Sanderson's boats. They drive to the dock and Kemp gets ready to take the boat. Sala says his goodbyes, and Kemp sails off into the sunset. Well, it turns out that Kemp published his award-winning writing, and he went back to New York to marry Chenault. Good for him. Somehow he managed to make it all work out. Sadly, he died in 2005, but it definitely sounds like he accomplished what he set out to do. This was one of those movies where you can really appreciate the acting and connections to the true story. I might joke about how it connects to current drama with court cases, but in actuality, it's a great telling of the man behind the story. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.